3 unmarked pickup trucks stormed into a small ranch in Ironwood Valley at midnight. To them, it was just an easy pit stop, no cops, no neighbors, just an old man making coffee on a weather-worn porch. They laughed. An old man with a few horses and a shovel. No weapon, no threat. The perfect victim. But what they didn't know was that the man used to be the legendary commander of Delta 4C, most elite unit in US military history. Calling him a veteran wasn't enough. He was Phantom, the name that haunted those whose stories never made it to the papers. Tonight, justice wouldn't come from a courtroom. It would come from a veteran, a true story, part of the Veteran Stories series, and a reminder: never underestimate a soldier who made it home. You're watching Justice for Veterans, and this is the story of Wade Thorne. Wade Thorne lived alone. No wife, no children, no neighbor truly knew where he came from. Every morning, he fed his horses. Every evening, he stood before an old photo. The woman in the picture, gentle eyes, curly hair, was the only person he ever loved. She had passed away 12 years ago. In the corner stood a rough wooden table. On it, a military notebook, a worn-out glove, and a silver coin engraved with the Delta Force logo, something he always spun between his fingers when deep in thought. He never spoke of his past. No one asked, and he didn't need their belief. To the townsfolk, he was quiet old Mr. Wade, bit of an oddball. But there was one thing no one ever noticed. This ranch was anything but ordinary. South of the border, the name Elguera, the Claw, wasn't just a cartel. It was an organization, a system. They didn't just deal drugs. They built a logistics empire from meth labs in Sonora, shooting camps in Durango, to new state-spanning smuggling routes. They wanted to expand north. To do that, they needed a relay point. No police, no press, no suspicion. A place like Ironwood Valley. They sent scouts with maps, satellite photos, and bribes for local officials. Every target was marked. One ranch lay directly on the route. One lonely man. Nobody knew anything about him. Perfect. But there was one thing satellite maps could never reveal. The man inside was unlike anyone they had ever faced. 2 unfamiliar men arrived at the ranch. New Ford, clean white shirts. One spoke fluent English. The other stood back, silver ring on his hand, skull tattoo at the base of his neck. The speaker started with a smile. "We represent a land development company. Very impressed with your property." Wade wiped his hands on his jeans, didn't invite them in, just nodded. "I'm not selling." The other man sneered, said nothing. His eyes shifted toward the stable where an infrared camera was visible, but not the only one. As the cartel men turned away, a tiny red dot blinked under their cuffs, a heat cam beneath the porch step. No one noticed, except Wade. He knew every step they took. The speaker tried once more. "We can do this the friendly way, or the faster way." Wade lifted his hat slightly, locked eyes with him. No fear, no words. And in that moment, something in their smile faded. 3:17 a.m. 3 shadows crept past the southern fence. Cold wind, no lights, no sound. They carried silenced pistols, knives, and lockpicking tools. One pulled out infrared binocular, scanned the stable, the barn, the quiet garden. He whispered, "Nothing. He's asleep." The front door was unlocked. They chuckled. But what they didn't know, on Wade's watch, combat ready mode had been on since 2:45. He sat at the kitchen table, coffee cup in hand, eyes fixed on thermal cameras. Tonight was no ambush. Tonight was an invitation. A soft click broke the silence, metal sliding into its final notch. One cartel member turned his head, but the door had already closed behind him. The next morning, their trucks were still parked at the gate, doors unlocked, keys inside. No one returned to claim them, and from that night on, the townsfolk spoke of Mr. Wade differently. News of the 3 missing men reached cartel headquarters. A young man in a white shirt gripped an unlit cigar. He was Christensen of Elguera's boss, hot-headed. Once executed one of his own soldiers for responding 5 seconds late. Christo slammed the table. An outburst. "An old man makes 3 of ours vanish. What are we? A damn circus? He opened a map, circled the ranch in red. Send in the Raptor team. Drones. Shoulder-fired missiles. I want that place off the map. His bodyguard hesitated. But there's no blood, no gunshots, nothing. Christo paused. He crumpled the map, stared into the security feed. Then, I want to know who's erasing my people from my map. Wade stood before a mirror. He took off his faded flannel shirt, revealing scars, none of them smaller than a blade. He pulled open a drawer. A hidden button clicked. A secret compartment slid out. Inside, an old military radio, encrypted walkie-talkies, a list of names, and a foil-sealed Delta Force packet, dated 2001. Wade turned on the radio. Weak signal. He tuned to a specific frequency. Only one sentence. Thorne here. They've arrived. Silence. Then a low voice crackled through. You finally called? Thought you'd have died of hypertension by now. Wade smirked. Got 2 weeks of pills left. The reply. Good. Send coordinates. Us retirees are bored as hell. And that was when the cartel stopped facing an old man and started facing a past that once made the world tremble. 3 days after the signal, 4 men arrived at the ranch. No vehicles, no luggage. They came through the trail behind the Pine Ridge, each carrying a small backpack and a gaze Wade hadn't seen in years. In their bags, mechanic tools, surveillance gear, explosives, and schematics once used in Afghanistan. Wade laid the property map across the wooden table. He pointed at each spot. Here plant mines, Hera-motion sensor cams. The garden? Drone camouflage. Stable? Command post. Every corner of the ranch was transformed. Beneath the soil, wiring systems, sensors, traps, all linked to a central control unit. From above, it still looked like an old country farm, but underneath, it was a trap, a labyrinth, an asymmetric battlefield the cartel would never expect. Night 4. 7 armored SUVs, 18 cartel gunmen, 1 recon drone circling above. They split into 3 flanks, approaching from the west, cutting through the Gardens, a flood escape path back in '98. They didn't know. The sensors triggered on their 5th step. Wade's drone flew over 100 meters high, invisible in the night. Live feed streamed to the small screen in his hand. Wade pressed a button. Dust erupted. 1 SUV flipped sideways, tires on fire. Tall grass on the right burst into flames. Cartel men scattered, panicked. One shouted, "How many people are in there?" No reply. No one in sight. They only heard clicks, like the land itself was alive. 3 minutes later, 2 survivors. One of them had dropped his weapon. The cartel changed tactics. No more attacking the ranch. They took hostages. 3 townspeople were abducted at night, an elderly couple and a young woman, niece of the local sheriff. They were held in an abandoned cabin, 4 miles from Wade's ranch. No guards, just booby traps and a jamming device to block all signals. Wade didn't need a map. He walked through the night. One hand held a machete, the other, a medic kit. 3 minutes. He disabled traps, unlocked doors, cut bindings. Not a single gunshot. When police arrived, the captives were safe. On the floor, a single muddy footprint, military boot tread, pressed deep like a warning. No one saw Wade, but now they began to understand who was truly protecting this land. Christo wasn't smiling anymore. The map on his desk was smeared with red circles, black X's, and spilled liquor from his smashed glass. 17 men didn't return. 2 staging points were compromised. The town was silent, like someone had told them, "You're safe now." He stared at his advisor. "Bring everyone. Helicopters, shoulder rockets, flatten that farm." The advisor hesitated. "So, war?" Christo hissed. "No. An execution." Night 7. Helicopter blades thundered over Ironwood Valley. Low-flying drones scanned Wade's land. The cartel came armed, heavy weapons, encrypted radios, military-grade explosives. They were ready to destroy the entire property just to claim the head of an old man. But they didn't know. Wade had brought them exactly where he wanted. The center of a trap. They'd lock themselves in. Rain fell. Thunder rolled in the distance. Cartel teams split into pincers. Helicopters scanned the area. A shoulder rocket launched hit the barn. Exploded. Empty. From the south, a squad approached the stables. A faint click sounded. Boom. Claymore mine. Didn't kill, just shattered their formation. They scattered, confused. Wade lay atop the main house. Infrared scope ready, finger on trigger. One cartel man darted past an old oak tree. Crack. Down. Suddenly, another scout crept up behind Wade, gun drawn. Bang! Dropped before he could fire. From afar, Ramirez, the oldest sniper on the team, lowered his rifle. A shell struck his position. The hill lit up. Wade turned, stared for a moment, eyes red, then turned back to fight. He knew Ramirez would do that, just like in Fallujah, 25 years ago, when Wade almost died for looking back. 6 minutes later, cartel helicopters pulled out. Only rain and smoke remained. Krista, trembling, grabbed his radio. "I need reinforcements." Silence. Behind him, a step in the mud. Wade walked up. No words. No more bullets needed. Christo was captured alive. No injuries. No blood. Tied to an old wooden chair. Inside an underground bunker, former wartime supply room. On the table, a thick file. Smuggling routes. Satellite photos. Cartel personnel list. The first page showed a 12-year-old boy, son of Wade's fallen comrade, killed, trying to save that child during an Algara attack in 2016. Wade said nothing. He placed a silver tag on the table. U.S. Army Delta Force. Phantom. Retired but watching. Christo whispered, "Why'd you do all this?" "For one kid," Wade answered, soft as breath. "Because that boy once believed in justice, and I once let it die." 3 days later, the full file and recorded confessions were delivered anonymously to the Federal Security Agency. A nationwide manhunt was launched. No one knew where it came from. No one took credit. But a few in the valley understood. This time, justice didn't come from a courtroom. It came from a forgotten soldier who never gave up. The next morning, federal agents arrived at Ironwood Valley. Wade's ranch was open. No damage. No signs of haste. Just a clean house, a coffee cup still warm, and a framed wedding photo of Wade and his wife placed neatly on the table. They called. They searched. They scoured the woods. Nothing. Only one set of faded footprints in the mud leading to the ridge. Then, gone. On the wall, taped with blue ink pen, one note. "I was never here for the fight. I was here for the peace after." Wade Thorne left behind no possessions, no medals, no glory, but he left behind a land protected, a community awakened, and a reminder no one dares forget. Justice doesn't always come from the court, and those like him, veterans who gave everything, never truly retire. Wade didn't need anyone to say his name, because men like him, acting was enough. On an unmarked stone at the ranch's edge, townsfolk engraved one line: "Justice doesn't wear a badge. Sometimes it wears boots." He was 68, and in 5 days, he did what an entire system couldn't. The issue was never age. It was will, still burning. You've just watched a chapter from Veteran Stories by Justice for Veterans. If you've ever believed no one's ever too old to make a difference, comment, "I still have fight left in me." Because maybe you're the next one this world needs.